Coach Mike McDonald will be joined by the least experienced coaching staff, but he is not intimidated. And Mike Salk suggests trading DK Metcalf. Is he completely nuts? Welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show, where we love Seattle pro sports. I'm your host, Mikey, and today I have a couple of things to talk about. First up, I guess most of the things we're talking about came from 710 ESPN Seattle radio show Brock and Salk. Mike McDonald was on with them this week, or this past week, for an interview, and we'll talk about that. And then Mike Salk suggested trading DK Metcalf, and we have to talk about that idea and whether or not that is just an idea that is completely nuts. All right, we'll get to that later. First, we got to talk about Coach Mike McDonald, because no matter what you think of what Mike Salk's idea is for trading, that's just an idea that's out there, right? We want to talk some actual stuff that's going on with our coaching staff here. So let's get to the interview that Mike McDonald did with Brock and Salk. We'll talk about that to start out, okay? And Mike McDonald was on this week with Brock and Salk, and they asked him some great questions. They did their job. They did great. Asked him about hiring the coaching staff, and Mike McDonald said that they stuck to the vision for hiring the staff. Obviously John Schneider is a big part of this and handling it, but there sounds like they are working together. And the idea of hiring Grubb as the offensive coordinator is because he's been a winner everywhere he's been. If you look throughout his career, the offenses that he has coached, when he steps into a place, they instantly get better. And not do they just instantly get better year one, but they continue to improve throughout the time that he's there. I mean, just look what they did in 2 years at Washington, right? Year one, they got that program turned around pretty quick, and then year two gets them to the national championship game. With that offense. They like his ideas on offense, and how he'll be able to adapt his offense to the NFL, because they said that the other important thing to them about hiring their staff is having the growth mindset. And we've heard him say this before. So Brock and Salk, of course, asked him, what does he mean by this? And he said that it means it's someone who is always willing to learn and not just do things the way they have always done them, because that's the way they've always done them. So they just do it that way. It's important to them that they are hiring coaches that will, again, be able to adjust on the fly, week to week, game to game, based on what the opponent is showing you. And I think, again, that's going to be really important in today's game, especially to me, with the athletes that we have in the NFL now. So, the athletes just keep getting better and better. So there's a lot of athletes out there that can do multiple things, and you can put them in multiple positions to get the results you're wanting. So you just have to be willing to make those adjustments. So I like what he said about that. He said it's about just kind of some coach speak. They're going to be chasing the edges. That in the NFL you win in the margins by going after those little details. Again, he said you have to have a philosophy going into the game, but be able to adjust. Love hearing something like that. He said that you don't want to reinvent the offense every week, but play it based on your opponent. And to him, their offense is going to be aggressive, and that you have to be aggressive in today's game. What does that mean? You're going to take calculated risks, he said. So he didn't say exactly how often he's going to be going on fourth down or anything, but he said, yes, they'll be taking calculated risks. He said they're not going to be chucking the ball down the field every down, but again, taking those calculated risks. And again, if you watch Grubb's offense, yeah, they like to throw it downfield. And again, he's mostly coached pass-heavy offenses that throw it downfield. I am recording this on Wednesday night, Valentine's Day night, in fact. So happy Valentine's to you all out there. Thank you for listening. And based on the quarterbacks or the quarterback that we have under contract right now, Geno Smith, that's kind of what he does well. So it's going to be very interesting to see in the next 24 to 48 hours, somewhere in that time period, what is their final decision on Geno Smith? Because, again, we all know by Friday they have to have made their decision on whether they are, cutting Geno or not, and what they plan on doing with that. I would think his skill set would fit perfectly for what Grubb does, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So we'll see. And because it's so close, I'm not going to get too deep into it right now. We'll talk about it more after we know more about that decision. After that decision's been made. And okay, getting back to what Mike McDonald was saying about the offense, not checking the ball down the field every down, and that he's gonna want to see them run the ball. And you said, in today's NFL, you have to be able to run the ball, and you have to protect the ball. The other thing that he liked about Grubb is he believes that Grubb did call the offense based on the talent that they had at Washington. So feels like he's not just, again, one track minded, that he can adjust his offense. He doesn't expect that the offense in Seattle is going to look exactly like it did at Washington. He likes Grubb's offense because it's efficient, and also he's an offensive line guy. And again, to me, that's where you win the game, is in the trenches. If you have a good offensive line and good defensive line to start, you're already ahead of the game. And so if you can get those guys coached up, then that's going to help out a lot. He talked a little bit about Leslie Frazier and how he's just a wealth of knowledge, and that he's going to be a sounding board for him. And again, I think that is going to be so important because of the coaching staff and all their inexperience, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. I really like this next part where they asked him about Pete Carroll, and he would be intimidated walking into this building and the legacy of Pete Carroll and having to follow that up. And he said he's not intimidated by the legacy of Pete Carroll. And in fact, he wants to build around that and build on it, what Pete Carroll left behind. He doesn't, he's not walking in here going like, oh, I have to, be in Pete Carroll's shadow and I have to do things exactly the way Pete did them. Or, if to get people to respect me, I'm going to have to completely change things around here and make people forget about the other guy. He said, no, they have a good culture there. He likes it. He wants to build around the culture that's already there. And hopefully he's going to be successful, right? And he's just going to be adding to what, Pete Carroll had left behind there. Again, him saying that he knows the game is about the players. Again, you heard Pete say that in his exit interview, right? That, this game should be about the players. And Mike McDonald's coming in here. I've heard him say this a couple times now about how the game is about the players and how you always want to do what's best for the team and the individual players. So I'm just really liking this guy's mindset. Again, everything he says is so great. I'll be really curious to see how well he is at motivating a group of young men when it comes time. But just all of his ideas, his philosophies about the game, his ideas and philosophies about coaching in general, I just love it. I mean, it all kind of aligns with what my thought process are. So I love it. And so I got no complaints about anything he says about that kind of stuff right now. Hopefully it's going to translate to the field. Not sure how much turnover there's going to be, he said. But he said, that he knows that there's a lot of decisions that have to be made soon. So obviously, to me, he's alluding there to the whole fact about Geno Smith contract coming up, and the team making a decision on that. But he did say he's not going into this coaching job with the mentality that he needs to flip this whole thing over. He said, they're still in the process of evaluating all the players and seeing what he has, but he's staying open minded to do what's best for the team. So again, I like that. I mean, we saw it when Pete Carroll came in here and John Schneider came here, right? When they started out here, how many transactions did they have? I don't have the number in front of me, but I just remember it was like a record number of transactions. It was like, like 150 something transactions in a single off season to get the team turned around as fast as they did. It doesn't sound like John Schneider's interested in doing that right now, and it doesn't sound like Mike McDonald is wanting to throw his weight around and make that something that he wants to happen. He's staying open minded, got to do what's best for the team, and he probably sees this roster and sees, especially on the offensive side, that there's a lot of talent on the team. And that was basically the gist of his interview. They asked him some personal questions about his wife and how they met and them being married and whatnot. But on the football side of it, that's pretty much it. Now, let's go ahead and talk the hirings, because the hirings have been made official. They announced 7 of the hirings just recently. Though they hired Carl Scott as the defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach, and Kirk Olividati signed as the inside linebackers coach. So here's your full staff now. Adin Durde is your defensive coordinator. Ryan Grubb is your offensive coordinator. Jay Harbaugh is your special teams coordinator. Leslie Frazier is your assistant head coach. Carl Scott, again, being your defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. Scott Huff is your offensive line coach, and Kirk Olividati is the inside linebackers coach. Now, this is a lot of inexperience at the positions that they are in. Aden Durde, first time defensive coordinator. He's been, coaching for 6 years out of England. So, you know, this would be one that I would be, again, worried about if it wasn't for the fact that we know that Mike McDonald is actual defensive coordinator and he's the one who's going to actually be calling the plays on Sunday. We know that he's a defensive genius, as they say, right? The Sean McVay of defense. So if Mike McDonald's calling the plays, even though it's his first time as head coach, he's got that part down as a defensive coordinator. So I'm not worried about that at all. The motivating people as a head coach is totally separate from, calling the X's and O's on Sunday. I believe when it gets to Sunday, and he needs to call the X's and O's on defense, he's going to be able to do that just fine. We'll see how he does with his in-game decisions and keeping players motivated throughout a game. Now, Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator. Obviously, it's not his first time as offensive coordinator. He was doing that in college, but it's his first time being an offensive coordinator at the NFL level. So we're about to find out. Can Ryan Grubb call an offense at the NFL level? To me, it's not the same at all. I don't watch a lot of college football because every time I watch college football, I'm always annoyed about just in general, throughout the regular season. You get to the college playoffs, it's a different story. But throughout the regular season, it's just not, the level of competition is not there. You get all these power teams, all the teams with the NIL money now. They're stacked, and they're going against teams who aren't as good. The talent, the overall talent level is not there. Where that is not the case in the NFL. So you can't. There's a lot of stuff you can't get away with in the NFL that you can get away with at the college level, just based on your team being so much more talented than the teams you're going against. So we'll find out how good Ryan Grubb is able to adjust to that at the NFL level. And then Jay Harbaugh, your special teams coordinator, first time as the special teams coordinator at the NFL level. So, special teams is never a problem or something that you talk about until it is a problem, right? So, you never know. I don't suggest. I don't expect any problems with that. The Harbaughs, they're all great coaches. I'm sure Jay Harbaugh is going to be just fine as a special teams coordinator at the NFL level. But I mean, that is your head coach and all your head coordinators as first time, as their first times in those positions. That is wild to me. But it's also, I shouldn't say it's just wild. But it's a wild in a good way. We went from Pete Carroll, legendary Hall of Fame coach before he was with the Seahawks, right? At the college level. Cemented his Hall of Fame position at the NFL level throughout his 14 years with the Seahawks. You go from all that experience to saying we're getting that out the door, and now we're bringing everybody completely brand new, first time jobs. I mean, they are taking a big swing, and I gotta say, I love that. If you really are gonna move on from the legendary head coach, take some swings, make it worth it. Because yeah, there was only 1 year left on Pete Carroll's deal. So if you're telling me you couldn't wait one more year, it better be for like a really good reason, and you better have some coaches that are completely different, and that you're willing to put your job on the line for, and take swings on. Otherwise, you shouldn't have moved on from Pete. But it shows me that they're really committed to this mindset, and that alone made it like, okay, if there's only 1 year left, but um, but this was what you were willing to do, then it really was the right time. If you waited a year, maybe you don't get all these coaches in this position. So if you wanted to get these guys, then you needed to do it now. Otherwise, you missed out on this window to get all these guys that you want. Uh, so that, you know, paired with the fact that I don't think Pete wanted to move on from his coaching staff, and then there was the stream coaching staff that you could go out there and get, and it seems like they got all the guys they wanted. Then I think it was the right move at the right time, because you're able to make some big moves like this and take some big swings that I think, you know, could really pay off if John Schneider is right about these guys. It could really pay off, and it'll be exciting to see if they're able to make that happen. All right, so that was the interview. That's the coaching staff. Now let's get to this next thing. All right, and again, it might sound completely nuts to you, but Mike Salk wrote an article talking about trading DK Metcalf. And does that idea sound completely nuts to you? It might, but I'll tell you what, it's not. It is not nuts at all. It's not insane. There's people just going wild over this on social media. You know, I know he saw one person write something about him that completely seemed to have offended him. But you know, I'm with Brock. You know, after reading that post, I would say the same thing Brock said. Mike Salk is not dry at all. In fact, he's like my favorite radio personality, local radio personality. So I wouldn't say he's dry at all. But no. So Mike Salk, his idea for trading DK Metcalf, and why you would need to do it, not need to do it, but why it would be something that you would, you should consider and look into. Now, again, as he said in his post when he posted this, is like, you know, this is not clickbait. This is not because I hate this player, and it's not because I think he's bad. It's because of what you could potentially bring back for him. Now, if you could get a first and a second round draft pick for DK Metcalf, yes, I would do that in an instant. In an instant. So the idea is not completely nuts at all. In fact, it's a really good idea. I've seen people suggesting of why it's not a good idea, or how it's not really saving you money. But again, it's about trading the one player to get you draft capital, to get you players that you don't have, to get you talented players that you don't have at other positions. Okay, so if I got a first round draft pick and a second round draft pick for DK Metcalf, that means you got 2 first round draft picks, and there's a whole lot of different things you can do with that. You can maybe trade up to get a quarterback. You could stay where you are, get one of the potentially 6 quarterbacks that I think will go in the first round, or at least worthy of the 6th round. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. I think all 6 of those guys are definitely worthy of being first round picks. I don't know if they will all go in the first round now. With the way I hear a lot of scouts talking, maybe Michael Penix Jr., even Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, they might fall out of the first round. I think they're all worthy of it though, based on talent, especially compared to what we've seen in recent drafts, and what's going to be coming in future drafts. I could see all 6 of those guys easily being drafted in the first round, and they're all worthy of it. Is the thing? It's not like last year where we saw 3 quarterbacks go in the top 5, and for me, CJ Stroud went on to do really good things last season. I thought he was the only one that was worthy of a top 10 pick. So I think there's easily 6 guys just as talented or more talented than all 3 of the quarterbacks that went last year in the top 5 that are going to be available. You're not going to get those top 3 for the Seahawks at the 16th pick if you stay right there, but potentially Penix, Nix, and McCarthy are still going to be available there, and I would still take any 3 of those. So if you get Metcalf, then you're afforded to be able to take that quarterback if you really want one of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. And again, who knows what they're doing with Geno? We'll know more about that in just a couple days. So if they decide to move on from him, we know for sure they are going to get, they're going to go after one of those 6 quarterbacks in the draft. And then at that point, yeah, you probably will want to trade DK Metcalf because and again, only if you're getting a first round draft pick. That's got to be the base. You have to get a first round draft pick to even make this an idea that you'd be willing to accept. You got to get a first round draft pick. But if you do, then you're able to get your quarterback if that's what they're, if that's what it looks like they're going to do in the next couple of days. And then you're also able to go out and still get a top defensive lineman or a top offensive lineman also in the first round. To me, you're going after interior offensive line, whether that's center or the guards. If you don't know, both our guard centers that we're starting this season, all free agents, could be wanting money. We only have so much cap space as of right now. Lots of ways to make it so that there's a lot of cap space in just a very couple, small amount of moves. So we're not going to get into that right now, but that is something that you're dealing with. You're looking at a interior offensive line where there was injuries, there were struggles. Now they're all free agents, and who are you going to want to bring back? Who's going to want how much money? And then how much can you balance that out by just getting some of the top rookies, offensive line, and one, cutting the cost at those positions, but also upgrading those positions. Look, we have two really good tackles right now that we're not paying a lot of money because they're still on the rookie deals. Both drafted in the first round, right? So they're going to be on the team. Contract for 5 years in total. I think 3 years left now. So you could build a really young offensive line. You know, over that what they did 2 years ago now, and what they could possibly do this year if you traded a DK Metcalf. Again, get your quarterback, then you use that first round draft pick, go get an offensive lineman, second round draft pick. You could potentially get another offensive lineman to take care of that interior of the offensive line. And then you still have those 2 third-round draft picks to, go target some linebackers or safety to help improve the defense and get some players that fit what Mike McDonald wants to do with his defense. So I think this could actually be a good idea. And does it actually save money? I've heard him talk a lot about how, you need, this could be good because you pay DK Metcalf a lot of money, and you want to spend more money on players that play closer to the ball, like offensive line, defensive line. I do agree with that philosophy in general. But if you look at the facts, that's not how it works out. DK Metcalf, the way NFL contracts work, and his dead cap, it just does. His cap doesn't completely go away. You're going to get dead cap money that gets spread over to the 2 years, even if you trade him. So you're not really saving any money, but just what he brings in value in draft that can get you top players at positions of need for the team right now, that alone could make the trade worth it. Again, if you're getting a first and a second. If you're only getting a first, I'm probably not doing it unless that first round pick you're getting for him is a high first round pick. I'm not thinking it would be. I'm thinking if you're getting a first and a second from a team, it's from one of the teams that they feel like they're just like they need one more weapon for a quarterback they already have who's already good. So you're looking at like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a pick in the 20s and then whatever their second round pick was. So, that's what you would need. I mean, you need a first and a second. Again, only if that first is like if it's like a top 10 pick, then maybe you contemplate accepting that deal. But I would want a first and a second for DK. Otherwise, you're just not getting enough value back, especially when you think about what DK Metcalf is as a receiver, and you think about what Ryan Grubb wants to do in the offense that he runs. Metcalf fits so perfectly in it that if you're not getting something of great value, again, a first and a second, or like a very high first round pick, if that's the only pick you get, then it's just completely not worth it. Because I think what he could do in a Ryan Grubb offense, it would be too valuable for your team. Again, he's going to be valuable to another team, but his skill set in this offense is going to have very high value. Now, the issue with that this year in particular is the receivers that are in the draft. This is not last year's draft. We got JSN at pick number 20 as the first receiver taken off the board. right? And that was because he had an injury. Okay, so think about that. Everybody thought at one point that JSN was going to be a top 10 pick. He gets injured, drops all the way to 20 to the Seahawks. But everybody else was still below him, so nobody wanted to take another receiver before JSN was taken at 20. That's not going to be the case this year. We're going to have a receiver taken in the top 5. We could have a couple receivers taken in the top 5. Roma Dunze being one of them, right? So we're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, if depending on what moves are made and everything, I mean, he could be the #1 overall pick. But he's definitely going to be a top 5 pick. Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, those guys are going to be battling to be the second wide receiver, and one of them could go top 5. They're probably both going to be top 10. And then after those 3 guys, you're still talking about, we're going a couple rounds deep this year at the receiver position. I mean, just think about it. I know a lot of you out there, like I said, even though I'm not like a huge college fan, I know a lot of you probably are, and a lot of you are probably Husky fans. I mean, look at it alone. Look at the other 2 receivers for the Huskies. Okay, both 1,000-yard receivers, both projected to go by the latest 3rd round in every mock draft I see. I don't see them ever going later than the 3rd round. So, there's a lot of depth at the receiver position in this year's draft. So I don't know if you're in a trade, you're going to get that kind of value for DK Metcalf. Now you might say, well, all those guys are unproven. So maybe there would be a team that would want the proven commodity, but again, just DK Metcalf is getting paid right now. Other teams might decide it's worth it to take a chance on the player that they're only going to have to pay, $2 million to, versus DK's contract. That they're only going to have to pay like $2 million a year to for the next 5 years. Because again, remember, rookie contracts, if you're drafted in the 1st round, it's 4 years with a 5th year team option. The team gets the option whether you're getting that 5th year or not. So if a player is good, they're exercising that option for the 5th year, and that's your 5th year that you're only playing that player a couple $1 million. It's ever since they changed these draft rules and the compensation that rookies get, it's the value is even more to if you can get the right pick. So with so much talent being out there, I just don't know if there's going to be teams that are going to say, yeah, let's go take this expensive receiver versus like this receiver who we think is going to be just as good or has the same skill set, or potentially better at 1/5 the cost. We'll see how it goes, but I figured we had to talk about this trade idea, and a lot of the immediate reaction that we saw online to this article that Mike Salk wrote and then talked about on his radio show, and how it's actually not as insane of an idea as people are thinking. In fact, it's actually a really good idea. The thing to me is, it's real pie in the sky to me. Again, I'm a fan. That's what this whole show is about, is being a fan. If that was a scenario, that is a dream scenario. As a fan, I go, yes, get that done. A first and a second. Let's do it. Let's take that trade. Let's get these guys. Let's go get number 16 pick. Let's draft JJ McCarthy. Let's draft Jackson Power Johnson. Second round. Let's draft one of the offensive guards. I can't think of somebody off the top of my head right now, but and now you're talking about having a quarterback, two offensive tackles that you've drafted over the last couple of years. You just drafted two interior offensive linemen. You have a great offensive line for this new quarterback that you just drafted. Oh my goodness, let's go. Or let's say we find out they decide they want to keep Geno and they say, you know what, we're not going after a quarterback this year at all. We think we can still just like rely on Geno for the next 2 years. And you get a first and a second for DK. Then you're talking about first round. You're getting one of the top defensive linemen. You're getting one of the top offensive linemen. And then second round pick, you're getting another one of the top offensive linemen. And again, now you have an even better offensive line for Geno and for K9 and Charbonnet. And you added a piece to your defense as well that fits into Mike McDonald's defense, and he's one of the top players at the position. That's the building blocks of getting this team turned around real quick off of trading just one player. So actually, a really good idea, a really fun idea, fun as a fan. These are the kind of trades that you get done in a video game. I don't know if this happens in real life, just based on what the talent is out there in the draft class this year. But we'll see. It's going to be a really fun off season to talk about this year with so much going on. Completely new coaching staff. What are the decisions going to be made about this roster? There's just so much more up in the air since we have a completely new coaching staff, and we don't know exactly what they want to do yet. All right, well, we want to end this episode, so please hit the subscribe button, the like button, comment down below. What did you think of Mike McDonald's interview? What do you think of Mike Sock's trading DK Metcalf idea? Do you think it's completely nuts, or are you kind of more on my thinking of it, of like, actually this could be a good idea? In fact, it's such a good idea that it just doesn't seem realistic. It seems like something you do in Madden where you go like, oh, I can trick the computer into thinking that this is a good idea for these other teams. It just doesn't seem like something that gets done in reality, though. Okay, also, if you're listening to the podcast version, if you hit the follow button or the subscribe button, whatever platform you're on, that would be super appreciated. And also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating and a written review, that helps out the show so much. And yeah, really, I mean, just communicate with me. I'd love to get your comments and know what you're thinking about the show, and just what you're thinking of, in general, in your fandom. In across Seattle sports in general. Anytime you want to talk to me about any team in Seattle, the pro teams, I'm down to chat about it. All right. With that being said, we are going to end this episode. So thank you so much for listening to the Seattle Sports Show, where we watch legends awaken. So take cover, because with the sea of sound, you will see us rise to reign supreme and win forever.